months now, we've been talking about China edging India out of its traditional turf, throwing money and weaning India's smaller neighbors away. Nepal has been on the top of that list. The relationship has undergone a sea change. Many have accused Kathmandu of playing its two big neighbors against each other. Now is the time for the big reset. And it's already on, or at least that's the buzz in Lutyens, Delhi. So when Prime Ministers KP Sharma Oli and Narendra Modi meet for formal talks on Saturday, that's tomorrow, they're not expected to dwell on the recent past. What happened in the past? Mr. Oli had accused New Delhi of plotting to topple his government. Tomorrow, they'll let sleeping dogs lie, we are told. They're expected to look firmly ahead at the future, of course, with caveats. There will be diplomatic niceties for sure, but India is also expected to draw a line for its northern neighbour. Sources say Delhi will object to the $2.5 billion Budhi Gandaki project, which Nepal is expected to hand over to Beijing. India is staunchly opposed to this move. India has been purchasing hydroelectricity from its own projects in Nepal. It will not buy from the dams built by China, and that is a message that Prime Minister Modi will reportedly convey to Oli clearly. Here's what else will be on the table. Oli may assure Modi he has no intentions of crossing any red lines, meaning he understands and respects Delhi's core concerns. This includes the Madheshis. These are people of Indian ancestry who are living in Nepal. Nor will Mr. Oli raise the India-Nepal treaty. We'll come to all of it. So expect Oli to reach out to the Madhesis, who in any case have thrown their lot with him. These people are politically very important in Nepal. The Madhesis currently control some of the provinces of the Terai. The India-Nepal treaty is another matter altogether. Although demands for it to be renegotiated have been made earlier, successive Nepali governments, not just the current one, found it pointless to change a treaty which gave their nationals an open border with India, freedom to work and settle in India, employment of its people in the Indian Armed Forces and government, and so on. Nevertheless, an India-Nepal eminent persons group is expected to deliver its report on this treaty in July. So until then, nothing will happen. What else are they going to talk about? Prime Minister Oli has little love lost for India, but with his taking office, India has reached out. We can tell you Prime Minister Narendra Modi made commitments through interlocutors over the last 6 months. He's expected to reiterate them tomorrow. Modi spoke to Oli twice over the phone before he became Prime Minister and once after. The External Affairs Minister of India, Sushma Swaraj, has called on Mr. Oli in Kathmandu. India basically is actively engaging with Kathmandu, and with good reason. Prime Minister Modi is expected to promise no interference in Nepal's internal affairs and expedite pending Indian projects. This includes 2 hydropower projects. Also the $1 billion earthquake relief India had committed to Nepal in 2015. Modi is not expected to commit to any new projects until the current lot are done with, but both sides have their compulsions. What is tying Prime Minister Oli's hands? He's come to power, remember, on the basis of an anti-India campaign. He made a public promise to lessen dependence on India. Now he cannot be seen backing away. The Nepali middle class, especially the hill elite, appear deeply resentful of India's role in their country. And it explains Oli's private meeting with Prime Minister Modi at his residence this evening. Expect both leaders to work out what they will say during formal talks on Saturday. It's one of the ways for friends to get around differences to ensure their relationship does not go under, if they're still friends, that is. But to help you understand this tug of war between New Delhi and Beijing and Nepal in between, let us take you back in time. 2 years ago, a deadly earthquake struck the hill nation of Nepal. More than 9,000 people were killed. More than 22,000 people were injured. It was one of the worst natural calamities, natural disasters that this country had witnessed since its independence. The impoverished nation's economy came to a standstill. There was massive damage to infrastructure. Centuries-old monuments were razed to the ground. Crucial rail and road links were severed. The death toll was enormous. The tragedy left utter chaos in its wake. In its time of crisis, Nepal's neighbors, India and China, stepped in. Relief and rescue operations were carried out on a Herculean pace. It wasn't about neighbors being proactive and generous. Beyond the altruism and the symbolism was cold calculation. The two bigger economies, India and China, were competing for relevance in the calamity-struck nation of Nepal. Many slammed India for barging into Nepalese territory uninvited, even against Kathmandu's wishes, some said. In contrast, China played a better PR game. China seems to have made a favourable impact in Nepal. It is known for its engineering prowess. China's bulldozers opened roadblocks. Chinese aid workers operated meticulously, managing to sway public opinion in their favour. So while Nepal was still dousing that fire, another was lit in the Terai region. The Madhesis, originally from India, are now citizens of Nepal, and they were up in arms. They were unhappy with skewed representation in the new constitution promulgated in 2016, and they took to the streets. They inhabit, in fact, a wide belt of land along the Indo-Nepal border. And the first thing the Madhesis did was targeting supplies from India. A 7-month-long blockade hit Nepal where it hurts the most. The landlocked nation's dependence on India became starkly evident when its stock of essential commodities dwindled. From petrol to paper to wood to rice, Nepal suffered an acute shortage with supplies from India blocked. Seeing another opportunity, Beijing stepped in. It stepped in again. Goods were flown in from China. Many items were also transported via road. The Nepalese saw the Chinese as saviors. But every relationship has hiccups, every road has roadblocks. Quite literally, in the case of Nepal and China, presently, road connectivity between the two is not very good compared to what Nepal has with India. The mighty Himalayas along the Sino-Nepal border make construction of roads very difficult. Also remember, to Nepal's north lies Tibet. It is an undeveloped region marred by controversy. The locals there want independence from China. Given the political turbulence in this region, developing road links is not going to be a cakewalk for Beijing. And this isn't the only natural advantage that India has over China. Delhi has a decades-old monopoly over Nepal's trading routes. Nepal has been dependent on India's port of Kolkata for its maritime trade. This is a position that China has been keenly eyeing. Beijing and Kathmandu struck a deal. This deal allows the use of China's ports for trade between Nepal and third nations. Another move that challenges India's hegemony in the region. But it will take some time to materialize. When it comes to its energy demands, Nepal falls back on imports from India. All of Kathmandu's petroleum needs are fulfilled by New Delhi. India has also invested in various hydroelectric power projects in Nepal. And now, one of the strongest links, cultural. India and Nepal share cultural ties dating back centuries. Bollywood movies are a rage in Nepal, we can tell you. Legend has it that the inspiration for Devanand's classic Hare Krishna Hare Rama came from one of his visits to the valleys of Nepal. A song from that movie, Kanchi Re, borrows heavily from Nepalese tunes, folk tunes. In a nutshell, there's a long history of friendship and a short one of estrangement. As for the future, we'll have to wait and see if the two sides can strike the right note. But this attempted patch-up, and we'll see the evidence of it tomorrow when the two leaders come out to talk. This attempted patch-up is happening after months of hectic diplomacy. Our next report looks at what it took to get the two sides back on track.
On the face of it, India and Nepal have everything in common. There's a shared culture and religion. An estimated 3 million Nepali nationals live and work in India. There's free movement across borders. Yet, ties between the two capitals have rarely been smooth. It was so during the days when Nepal was a monarchy. It's so today in Republican Nepal. Let's look at the recent missteps by India and Nepal. In 2015, Delhi opposed the new Nepali constitution, saying it did not address the concerns of the Madhesis living in the plains of Nepal bordering India. But PM Oli stoutly defended the constitution, rejecting India's concerns. India backed a blockade by the Madhesis, cutting off essential supplies to Kathmandu. Oli stoked ultra-nationalism and sought China's support. India forged a coalition of Maoists, Nepali Congress and Madhesis to fight Oli. Oli won over the Maoists and with China's support won the polls last year. But politics is the art of compromise. In the weeks leading up to his victory in December 2017 and thereafter, Oli and Narendra Modi were reported to have struck up a working relationship. Interlocutors conveyed messages between the two leaders. They spoke over the phone apparently 3 times. It was all plain speaking. Oli complained about how India had treated him, how Delhi tried to undermine him in 2015 and toppled his government in 2016. Intermediaries told him to let bygones be bygones. India stayed neutral during the elections and is committed to working with Prime Minister Oli, but he must stop his anti-India rants. What now then? Course correction is underway with India keen to address Nepal's stalled development issues. Pending projects such as work on the 900 megawatt Arun hydroelectric will be remotely inaugurated by Modi and Oli on Saturday. Also, the integrated checkpost in Birganj. India had offered $1 billion in 2015 to help Nepal rebuild after the earthquake. With a strong government in power in Nepal, much can be accomplished. Bureau Report, WION.
Let's now come to the elephant in Kathmandu, rather the dragon breathing fire on India's apple cart. There is a view in South Block in Delhi that Oli's rise is actually China's rise. Oli owes his position to China since it was Beijing that brought him and the Maoists together in Nepal. So Prime Minister Oli cannot be trusted to respect India's red lines, and the longer he stays where he is, the more difficult it will be to dislodge him and by implication to dislodge China. Therefore, India must step up its search for an alternative political order in Kathmandu. One possibility, we understand, is reaching out to Maoist leader Prachand. This is the man India had brought in from the cold. He must be engaged with the aim of weaning him away from KP Oli. India must rebuild its credibility with the Madhesis and also strengthen its traditional ally, the Nepali Congress. But there's another view, and that is that India is stuck with China in Nepal. There's little that India can do about it now. China is a rising power. If it is rising in Europe, it's rising in America, why would it not rise in South Asia, much closer home? Add to that its border with Nepal. It is in Tibet, so that becomes a security issue. There have been reports about China engaging with Nepal's political parties and security forces to crack down on Tibetans. China sees economic opportunities in Nepal. Basically, it sees Nepal as a gateway to the vast billion-plus Indian market. So China will gradually leverage its economic heft to political heft, support India-baiting groups, build Nepal's infrastructure, all with a view to swamping the Indian market. China's motivations are also driven by some other factors. The only challenge to its strategic rise comes from India, remember. India has opposed the Belt and Road Initiative. India plays the Tibet card. India has teamed up with the US to form the Quadrilateral. This Quadrilateral is taking on China in its own backyard. Commentators say that China's ambitions have received a fillip from the Kathmandu elite, traditionally suspicious of India. They also appear to have been seduced by the prospect of millions of dollars in Chinese investment. This kind of money could potentially transform their poor country. That's what they're looking at. 5 years ago, Beijing's ambassador in Kathmandu had promised to do everything that India's ambassador did. That is the writing on the wall.